ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦਿਸ ਐਪੀਸੋਡ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸ਼ੋ। ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਬਰਨੀ ਸਿੰਪਸਨ ਨਾਲ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਮਸ਼ਹੂਰ ਵਕੀਲ ਨੇ। ICBC ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਿਛਲੇ 40 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਇਹ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੇਸਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਲੜ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਅੱਜ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਐਕਸਪਰਟੀਜ਼ ਜੋ ਹੈ ਇਨ ਲਾਅ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਹਟ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਤੇ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਤਜਰਬਿਆਂ ਚੋਂ ਕੀ ਕੁਝ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਬਰਨੀ ਸਿੰਪਸਨ ਦਾ। ਬਰਨੀ, ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ।
Thank you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. But today, instead of your expertise in law in ICBC, I'm not going to touch that. I'm just going to try to extract lessons, what we can learn from your life, your experience, what you have gained as a politician, as a lawyer, as a social activist, as a community member. So when we talk about life as such, it's becoming more and more complicated. When we see the time since when you grew up and when now children are growing up, things have changed a lot. What would you like to sum up your life as? What experiences which have brought you over here? When we talk about success, what does success mean to you?
Well, I think we have taken consideration that I'm a member of a minority just like you are.
Right.
I'm of the Jewish faith. And history has not been terribly kind to the Jews, just like it has not been terribly kind to the Sikhs.
Right.
As you know, the Holocaust wiped out 6 million of our people.
Right.
So if I come towards the end of my life and somebody asks me, what have you contributed? Why were you here? I would like to say, well, I think I've made a difference. That I've not been totally consumed with my own material wants. That I hope when I leave this earth that there's one iota of more positiveness. So I think that's very important, and that's a value that my wife has also, and we have calculated that in our children.
Right.
So we have 3 children, one who is a top surgeon in Toronto. In fact, he called me yesterday during that terrible shooting to just assure me that he was okay. And we have another child who's got a doctorate degree in psychology and helps children who can't speak.
Right.
And my third daughter is a lawyer who deals with family situations.
Okay.
So we're all trying to make a little bit of a difference.
Wonderful. So this history of yours, where you feel you have contributed back to the community. As a lawyer, your brain always is on the workout. It's never resting. So how do you try to bring calm to yourself, to your spending time with your family, your friends? And when I ask about success as such, is success just accumulation of material wealth, or is it much more?
It's been a problem with me throughout the years, to be frank with you. I've been totally preoccupied, or not totally, but to a large extent preoccupied with developing a law practice.
Right.
But before I was a lawyer, I was a social worker. So I wanted that law practice to take on a certain road. And this would be not only to help the victims of car accidents, but to help them in other aspects of their lives. And that becomes quite time consuming, and there is side effects to that. Often I would wake up in the middle of the night, concerned whether we started that legal action or whether there's more that we can do for our clients. I've even gone so far as to take a client who was being abused to India, to her parents.
Right.
Then I went into politics,
Right.
because I thought I could make a change there, and I was really a test in reality going into politics. I have to be honest with your viewers. I don't think that I've had the type of balanced life that I should have had. So when I spend time with my kids, I emphasize the importance of having a balanced life.
Right.
Not only to be totally consumed with your profession, but also with those close to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Life is becoming more complicated. The competition is much more as compared to before, and that's what our children are also stressed out always.
Yeah.
First of all, if they want to go into any professional place, they hardly get admissions in Canada. They go outside, and then once they get into their own field also, still there is a lot of competition. But again, when we talk about success, as you said, balance is one particular answer in life. But probably we forget when we are on that race to achieve that success, we forget all that, and our focus is just on our professional acceleration and professional achievements.
Yeah.
With your experience, what you have gained all over the years, because today it's a different kind of talk what we are having, because with you say you either learn the hard way or through the experiences of others. So we have a prime example in you who has success in all the fields which you touched and you achieved that. But once you go back into your life and look into the things, the challenges what you face, the things what you should not have done. So
Yeah.
that is what we are trying to extract from you today, so that our viewers and especially the children can from learn.
I think, if anything, that I've learned is time is so precious and time flies so quickly
Right.
that before you know it, your kids are growing up.
Right.
Some of them have to move from Vancouver because they're accepted at other universities,
Right.
or they marry a spouse from Toronto or wherever. And you regret not spending more time with your children. I certainly have that feeling. When I was in politics for 5 years, I spent a lot of time in Victoria, spent a lot of time with my constituents. It was wonderful. You know, I felt really helping people. But the net result was I felt that my kids really didn't know me after my stint in politics. You know, and I tried to make up for it, but by that time it was a little bit too late.
Right.
They already had their own lives. So now I'm fortunate because I do have a second chance in the sense that we have 7 grandchildren. My daughter, youngest daughter, has twin girls, who are now 19 months old. And they were over the other last weekend, and I was totally absorbed. I wasn't thinking about the office when I was with them.
Right.
I was totally absorbed with them. And I look back and I wish that I would have realized that time was so precious and I would have spent more time with my children, with my wife. Yeah.
Wonderful. Let's go for a short break, Bernie. We'll be back and learn a little bit more from your experience as to how we can live a balanced life and be successful in all the fronts. Let's go for a short break and we'll be shortly back.
Okay.
ਸ਼ਾਈਨ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਡੈਂਟਲ ਕਲੀਨਿਕ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸਤਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਦੇਖ-ਰੇਖ ਹੇਠ ਆਧੁਨਿਕ ਮਸ਼ੀਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵਰਤੋਂ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦੰਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਹੀ ਕੇਅਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੰਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਫ਼ ਕਰਨਾ, ਕਰਾਊਨਸ, ਬ੍ਰਿਜਸ, ਡੈਂਟਲ ਇੰਪਲਾਂਟਸ, ਰੂਟ ਕਨਾਲ, ਡੈਂਚਰਸ, ਬੌਂਡਿੰਗ ਅਤੇ ਵਨੀਰਸ, ਐਕਸਟ੍ਰੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ, ਬੋਨ ਗ੍ਰੈਫਟਿੰਗ ਆਦਿ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹਨ। ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਡੈਂਟਿਸਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਮਾਹਰ ਹਨ। ਇਹ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਲੀ ਬਿੱਲ ਭੇਜਦੇ ਹਨ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਘੱਟ ਤੋਂ ਘੱਟ ਚਾਰਜ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਵਾਅਦਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਫॉर ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਸ਼ਾਈਨ ਐਂਡ ਸਮਾਈਲ 604 503 03 20 ਤੇ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ। ਕਿੰਗ ਜਾਰਜ ਸੁਪਰ ਸਟੋਰ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ, ਯੂਨਿਟ 370, 7488 ਕਿੰਗ ਜਾਰਜ ਬੁਲੇਵਾਰਡ, ਸਰੀ। Once again, welcome back to the program. In today's segment, we are focusing on a different kind of aspect from Bernie Simpson's life. We all know that he has been a successful lawyer where he has helped thousands of clients. But when it comes to his own self, what experience can we learn from his life? That's what we are focusing upon. Let's learn a little bit more. So, Bernie, before the break, like you mentioned, that balance is the answer. You probably did not spend much time with your children, and still you have a little bit regret about that. But again, the question is, in life, first of all, how young are you?
Let me say that I've been practicing close to 50 years.
Wow, that's practicing
Okay,
close to 50 years, and then
okay.
we can add a few more
Okay,
years.
but you know, the age is not as relevant as the way you
That's
feel. And I find that if I'm with young people, I'm younger.
Right.
You know. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, from this experience of yours, what God has given you, you're a religious person having faith as a Jew. What role does religion and should play in one's life?
Well, that's a hard question for me to answer because I don't consider myself a religious person. We are practicing Jews in the sense that we keep the dietary laws and you know the burial laws, which are very similar to the Muslims, as you probably know, because they're our cousins. My wife is more religious than I am, and that's probably looking back at the many years. Probably that's another regret that I have, that I wasn't more spiritual and more religious.
So, Bernie, as human beings, we spend most of the time for others. like in our professional service also, otherwise also we are trying to impress others, but we hardly find time for ourselves. Uh, how important do you think that one should take out time for oneself also?
Absolutely very important. One of the regrets I have in life, at this stage of my life, is that I didn't spend more time. I see my friends, we had dinner the other night and they just came back from 2 months in Palm Springs. And another friend at the dinner table was just talking about the golf games he's having, and I've never been into golf, and the last thing I want to do is go down to Palm Springs for 2 months. I can't envision what I would do, in Palm Springs. We had a premier in this province once called W.A.C. Bennett,
Right.
and they depicted him as being in a state of perpetual motion. And I guess that was kind of when I was in my formative years, that was my ambition, to be constantly moving, meeting people, doing things, stuff like
Right.
that. I have a regret now that I didn't take up hobbies.
Right.
And people say, well, when are you going to retire? And I said, I'm not planning to retire at all. That would be my worst nightmare, to retire, because I have nothing to retire to.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm quite happy to go down to the office every morning at 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Right.
I don't last in the office as long as I used to,
Right.
before I could stay till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. And I have more normal hours now, but that will be my life probably to the end.
You have been very closely involved with the Indo-Canadian community, as you mentioned. You have been to Amritsar also, and because practicing in law, ICBC, you have been dealing with hundreds and thousands of clients from the Indo-Canadian community or the South Asian community as such. So there's a different kind of bonding you have with this community, and we also find you at the Nagar Kirtans where hundreds of thousands of people come, and you also are present over there, or at social gatherings where there are a large number of Indo-Canadians. So you've been quite closely involved with the community as such. Integration is one part. We, as a cultural mosaic in Canada where we live, there are different communities. So, what has been your experience being close to the Indo Canadian community?
Well, it's probably one of the most positive experiences I've ever had in my life. The When I was an MLA, I this was a group of constituents, the Indo-Canadian community, who really appreciated what I was doing. I felt that, and I was in India, I think 3 or 4 times during those 5 years I was in MLA. It's been an extremely positive experience, my involvement in the Indo-Canadian community. And even now, if I go to Maine and 49th, people like Sucha Claire I see, and
Right.
and Pabla, and it's been an integral part of my life.
Right.
And I even tried in my early years to study Punjabi. I didn't get too far,
Right.
but one of my regrets is that I didn't master Punjabi. And also, about 50% of our staff, 60% of our staff are Sikhs,
Right.
and I can identify with them. Several of them are new immigrants.
Right.
We have three boys who are very much involved in the Vaisakhi parade and the plans for that, and I can feel their aspirations
Right.
and how they want to be a very important part of Canadian society,
Right.
but not assimilate.
Right.
They integrate but not assimilate, and that's very important, and it's
Absolutely.
important in our religion also.
Absolutely.
Integrate but not assimilate.
That's right. And finally, if eternal truth is we all have to leave one day. And what legacy or how would you like to be remembered, Bernie? What is in your mind which you would like to share today finally with our viewers as to what legacy would you like to leave?
Well, as I said at the beginning, I like to feel that I've made a difference.
Right.
I'm not under any illusion that I've made any significant difference, but you know, my views about situations, for instance, like in the Middle East,
Right.
the Sikh community here, I've received a great deal of satisfaction out
Right.
of seeing the young people grow.
Right.
When I first started my law practice, I won't go into the details why it became such a large portion of the Sikh community, but most of them were laborers.
Right.
Most of them, you can always tell a person who worked in the mill, when you shook his hand, you knew there was a finger missing, you know.
Right.
And then when many years later, when I was an MLA, the Premier appointed me to the Senate
Right.
of the University of British Columbia. And one of my jobs was to confer degrees.
Right.
And I'd be sitting down there, and young members of the Sikh community, be they lawyers, doctors, nurses, social workers,
Right.
engineers, they were walking in front of me. And that wasn't the case when I first started 45, 50 years ago.
Right.
And to the point now where it's so satisfying to see, even if they are my competitors in law,
Right.
believe it or not,
Right.
it's so satisfying to see these young people. And to the point, and I know it may be crass for some of your viewers to hear this, but the Indo-Canadian community is the most influential politically and economically of any ethnic group in Canada.
Right.
And they've worked hard to be there, and they deserve to be there.
Right. It was a pleasure talking to you. A separate, different kind of talk with you today. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us.